So, good evening, everybody. I want to say that, I watched AEW All In, and, I know it's a bit of a contrast for me because I'm somebody who goes to all AEW shows. But the problem is that, I don't have a passport. So, I wasn't able to go to All In. But it was very cool watching the show at home. And I think that the main message for AEW tonight is it's not matches, it's story and good matches, which makes AEW great. And really, this shows me that Tony Khan is a mix of Triple H and Dixie Carter. I think he has some bad habits, but he really is passionate, and sometimes he hits the nail on the head. And honestly, like, let's say if AEW closes doors in the future, like WCW did, I would hope that Triple H would hire Tony Khan as like the executive producer of pay-per-views if it goes down that way. However, I want AEW to be successful. I want it to be another brand. I want it to be around for a very long time. And I also want like tonight to be a reboot for AEW. I really think that, you looked at what happened last year with AEW, with how one incident caused a lot of bad will to AEW, and a year later, I think the whole show and the production, even though that there were some issues, it caused a lot of just got to check the clock because I have to go to work in an hour. That definitely tonight has caused a lot of great will, and it really shows that Tony Khan gives a shit, and there's a lot of wrestlers that do give a shit, and definitely the show had a bunch of issues as well, really, but I definitely want to review it all for you. The first match was the 16-man match, so it's 8 people versus 8 people. I'm not even going to read down the list. I was a little annoyed because they mentioned something about a winner's purse, and that just means like the winners can get a lot of money. And then I was saying to myself, okay, this is a big issue because there's way too many people. I also think this match wasn't announced until the last minute, if I'm correct, really. And then you had another match with Dustin Rhodes and other people, so I got a little confused. I was like, so isn't he in this match? So I felt very, very confused with this. And then also, too, like, Cornette and other people criticize multi-man matches are not that good because, you don't know who the fuck to root for. They're just clusterfucks and all that, really, So that's how I felt watching this. They did a spot where everybody was fighting everybody, and I remember watching it and Saddam Singh looked very confused, like he didn't know like who to like pick a fight with, and that wasn't really good. And then what also happened was that it reminds me a lot of what happened in the Blood and Guts match where Okada looked confused, and that's not really good when you have people who they're in a situation and then they look confused, especially if they're like they stand out, especially Satnam Singh being a giant among these people. They did a dumb comedy spot where it was Leo Rush versus Satnam Singh, and Satnam Singh's like hugging his leg. No, Leo Rush is hugging his leg. It just, as I said, it just felt a little dumb, and I'm not a fan of this dumb comedy stuff. That really needs to end with AEW. Satnam Singh clears the ring and throws Leo onto everyone outside the ring. And I was saying, like, there should have been more spots with Satnam Singh in this match where he's throwing people and doing choke slams, like what they did with Kill Switch tonight. Like they made Kill Switch look like a monster tonight, but with Satnam Singh, I think he did some things, but he could have done more. He could have thrown like 2 people at one time. He could have just choke slam people in a row or do other stuff, or he could have just improvised, But I did think that he was very. He didn't show enough, like being a big beast type of wrestler, and he needs to do that. If he's a giant among men, he needs to act like one. And also, too, there was a bunch of comedy spots. Like, Evil Uno hits somebody with folded paper. John Silver flexes for the camera. And I think there's a little too much dumb comedy. And I said to myself, couldn't this be for the ROH or AEW tag team title at All Out? Or could they mention, like, the cash amount? Or what would happen if the rule was, okay, here are these teams, and what happens is that many of these teams are two people from an individual team, in a group of four teams. What would happen if, like let's say if John Silver tries to pin it, the Dark Order gets a lot of money, or what would happen if the Premier Athletes pin it when they and the Dark Order are working together, and then they get the money or whatever. Because you mentioned Winter's Purse, there's something they could make a story out of this, and they chose not to. And that's not good. They should be making stories out of everything, really. They did a spot where four people jump off four separate posts that looked really cool. Private Party was on the mic, and I was saying to myself, like, well, Private Party was on the mic, and it confused me because they sounded like they were hosting the whole show, and that would have been really cool if they did that, with them, just like the New Day, and then they had a match. But the Private Party, what would have happened if they said something like, we want to win at Wembley Stadium, we want to do it for our mamas, we're going to get $25,000 winner's purse, we want to spend it on shots and shots and shots. You see what I'm doing? It just takes like 30 or 40 seconds, and you're making a story, you're giving them a purpose, you're talking about why winning means something, both the fame and the glory type of thing, really. And that would have helped with this match, really. And then we did a bunch of comedy segments of them, just being very lavish. And then other people are saying, oh, well, you're arrogant, or they're saying, we're lavish, but we also want the gold type of thing. We want the gold as well. We want the money and the gold and the glory type of thing, really. So yeah, they could have made something out of this, but it was very much a clusterfuck match. So, the kickoff matches were terrible, and this one was terrible. The next match was there's a couple of other things that I would say that I'm happy that Kyle Fletcher was part of the winning group, because the Don Callis family loses a lot. And I would also say that they did something that made me very upset. They announced that that AEW Grand Slam, there's going to be a pay-per-view called AEW Grand Slam in Brisbane, Australia. You do not announce pay-per-views like this. You do not announce pay-per-views like this on the kickoff show. You have to announce pay-per-views like this on the main card, really, because most people don't watch the kickoff show. What would happen if you mentioned that in the middle of the card, like maybe during a time where people are tired? That would have made the show more watchable. So you don't mention like big things on your kickoff show, unless you do something like say, okay, for those who watch the kickoff show, we want to give you a good deal on tickets or something like that. There's better spots for that. The next match was Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander versus Willow and Ishii. And okay, I was happy with this. They said the winner chooses a stipulation for the match at All Out that they're going to have between Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander. They could have just announced what Willow wanted, as far as a match stipulation. I'm at the end of this, and have her kind of give a promo. I think that would have been, a good full circle. Stokely enters, and he has this like bed. He was like being carried by a bunch of people, and he's on this like bed that was like made of gold and had a ring apron on it. And I was kind of like saying, okay, he's an arrogant jerk, so it works. But I kind of said like, I really hated this match because Stokely's always been a loudmouth character. He's been like a joke character. So it just didn't work really. It was almost like, imagine if Bobby Lashley fought at WrestleMania, and then you had I think it was Leo Rush or whoever was with him that was like his hype man or whatever, and like that guy who was his hype man in WWE was not really that good of a wrestler. It just felt like it hurt. It really hurt Chris Statlander and Willow to have Stokely Hathaway. Willow hits Statlander with a spine buster. Statlander falls. Statlander falls onto Willow outside of the ring. Willow does a discus lariat. Statlander does a suplex on the floor. They spent a lot of time outside the ring in this match. Stokely should have been hitting Willow behind the back of her head. Willow should have been, Stokely should have just been like hitting Willow or hitting Willow with weapons, when she's not looking, or maybe he does that when the referee's not looking, just really get him more over as like a heel or whatever. That was working because he's really sold as this comedy wrestler. Chris Statlander hits a Blue Thunder Bomb, which was really sick. Willow hits a Death Valley Driver, which is really sick. Stokely does a 10 punch on Ishii, and he looked very, very pathetic when he was doing it. So, again, it felt very, like, dumb and comedic, so I'm not a fan of this. This was bad to me. You don't have, like, a joke rest. It's like Luther has been, like, a butler for a long time, really, but if he was trying to do, a move on a female wrestler who had a legitimate wrestler with him, it just wouldn't be good, really, So I just think that, once again, as I said, you don't take like a comedy manager or a joke manager and make them a wrestler against someone like Tomohiro Ishii, who's one of the bigger guys, really. So it really just buried everybody. And the one thing that was good was that Ishii hits one move on Stokely halfway and pins him. This wasn't like again like Michael Cole or John Laurinaitis like versus John Cena or something like that. This was actually like, okay, we have to be realistic. One move knocks him out, really. So I'm happy. It was a bad match and a bad usage of Stokely as a heel, bad usage of Will Nightingale. She deserves better than this. Ishii could have put Stokely through a table or something that would have popped the audience more. And I would say that they also announced that AEW Forbidden Door was in London. And I'm really, really happy that, again, they're doing more international shows. But, once again, this is not good. You do not mention kickoff shows you do not mention, like, these big moments and these big shows on a... You don't mention these big shows on a kickoff show. You should mention these on the main roster unless you're offering tickets or something like that. So I'm not happy that they did that. That really, really hurt the show. The next match is Undisputed Kingdom, the Gates of Agony, versus Dustin Rhodes and Von Erichs. And there's a few other people in this. I think it was like 4 versus 4 type of thing. So Dustin Rhodes, Von Erichs, and Sammy versus the Gates of Agony and Undisputed Kingdom. And I was happy to see Kevin Von Erich, and I really like that because honestly, as I've said, like he's getting older, so obviously, death is going to come soon, so he needs to kind of have a big spot. Dustin Rhodes, he needs a big spot as well, really, because also, again, he's getting older. You don't know how much longer he has, really, so it's important to celebrate those people, and they've done a lot of great stuff, really, so they deserve to be in these big moments. Another thing that I will say is Sting comes to the show and the exact same thing. We don't know how much he has left, really, so it's good for him while he still can to kind of show up. And then the other thing I'll say is that, it's good for the Von Erichs because the Von Erichs actually need this exposure. Undisputed Kingdom, Gates of Agony, even though I've not really liked them, they've been wrestling on like every show. Brian Cage has been jobbing a lot. So honestly, if he gets exposure on a big stage in front of 50,000 people, that's a good reward for everything they've been doing. So I just think that, it's almost like saying, okay, you put in all this work this entire year, you've been showing up on almost every show. You're not like Ethan Page, like bragging about, how, you can sit at home and get paid, really. So I really appreciate, okay, well, you've done all these things for AEW, you're on the main card. So it does feel it does feel like appreciating, but also you're putting new people and young people on the AEW card, really. So that's good exposure for them, and it shows that you believe in elevating the next generation, which you should always be doing, but also rewarding people that put in all the hard work and stuff like that. So it was very appropriate. I would say it took a long time for everybody to get down to the ring. They did like a sequence where they're fighting back and forth, and I felt like that lasted way too long. Sammy Guevara does a corkscrew drop kick on Khan. Brian Cage, I really like the Wolverine cosplay, and I said that was a great thing that he did that because Wolverine and Deadpool's the #1 movie in the world. Makes sense to kind of like take something that's very popular and then do a cosplay of it or whatever, because you gotta just visually that's a good idea. Bischoff Khan, I really appreciate him throwing Sammy into the barricade, and they really need to just do different things. I really think that the Gates of Agony, if they're trying to like rough up people or even throw people through a table or rough up people when they're outside the ring, like that ruthless style, that they really need to keep that because it just works for them really, you know. So I appreciate them in the match. They're very aggressive in this match, and they're really trying to be a character. So I think that I really appreciate that. Dustin does a running bulldog and a scoop slam of Matt Taven. I did feel the Undisputed King, especially Matt Taven, he took a lot of offense, so I felt like he was a little buried in this. I really would say that Dustin does. I like that spot that Dustin did, where he did the suck it to a bunch of people. He did the Sammy breakdance spot, and I would say that again it works for Dustin because obviously he has a lot of charisma. So sometimes you can incorporate that, and then also unlike the Undertaker, Dustin's character, he can be a little unpredictable. So it works for him, but if he did that all the time, really it wouldn't really work. Sammy Guevara does a shooting guard star press on everybody. Dustin Rhodes does a Canadian destroyer on Matt Taven. Gates of Agony does a Tower of Doom spot on the Von Erichs and Undisputed Kingdom. Matt Taven, like I said, is getting beaten down a little too much. The Gates of Agony does a triple power bomb spot that botches. They say there has to be a legal, and I was a little mad with the match too because they mentioned that there has to be a legal person in the match to get the pinfall, and through the entire match, you saw multiple people in the entire ring, really. So it almost felt like you were watching a tornado tag team type of thing. But what really had to happen was it had to be one versus one. Like, and it's just be, even though it was 4 against 4, it had to be 1 versus 1 in the ring. But they spent way too much time doing multiple people versus multiple people. So, visually it just looked really confusing. So, I wasn't, kind of happy with that. Like if you wanted it to be like a tornado match and you do a lot of like tag team spot type of thing where it's everybody against everybody, and that's the majority of the match, really. That just then you have to make a tornado tag team. But if it's like 1 versus 1 within the ring, like a multiple person tag team match, then that's what you need to do, really. So you need to have more spots like that. So I felt like they kind of confused everybody. I was happy Dustin got the pinfall because I was happy Dustin got the pinfall because I honestly think he needs to be the ROH champion this year. Like you can easily make like either Christian Cage or who else? You make Christian Cage or MJF or another person like a heel with the ROH title, and then you can have Dustin Rhodes kind of be the babyface, So I think that's good, but you also have to be a little careful with Dustin Rhodes because you don't want to turn him into a Jeff Jarrett type of thing where he kind of does like a glory hog or taking all these big spots, really. So you got to be a little careful, like not to kind of give him way too many victories or way too many things, because then it just comes off as, well, either people like him too much backstage, or maybe it's that thing too where people are saying he deserves it, and then sometimes you can give a hardworking kid a little too much and they become a little spoiled, so just be a little careful not to spoil him too much. Kevin Von Erich does the Iron Claw and then everybody else does like the Iron Claw on his team when the losing team try to attack them, and I'm okay with this because obviously, like I've said, how many times do you see something like that? So that was a good ending just to kind of put him over. Iron Claw movie, a lot of people did see that, so it works. It was a clusterfuck match. I appreciate Cage of Agony standing out as heels. I appreciate the spots for Kevin Von Erich, the Von Erich boys, Dustin Rhodes. They need this exposure on a big stage, and also all their names really sell. I appreciate the lack of comedy in this match. The action was passable. I appreciate the Gates of Agony and the Sammy Guevara spots, So then the main show starts. So overall, I would say that, the last match of the kickoff show was a lot better, but it was like 2 out of 3, really. Like, it was really like two bombs, especially, and it was a bomb that Tony mentioned these major international shows on the kickoff show. As I said, he should say that for the main roster, really. So I really would say in my opinion, I would honestly give the kickoff show I would give them just like a solid D. Really, I think the last match saves it, but it's a solid D with the kickoff show. For the main roster, you have the four-way ladder match: House of Black, Patriarch, Blackpool Combat Club with Pac, and Bang Bang Gold. Um, Bang Bang Gold, or whatever they call themselves. They can't be changing their name too much because then people get the fucking confused. Christian runs away at the beginning to conserve energy. Brody King does a crossbody on one of the ass boys against the barricade. That looked like that had hurt. Um, they did a repetitive spot where a wrestler was climbing a ladder and then another wrestler like sabotaged them. They did that like maybe 6 times in a row. That was not good. Too repetitive. Colt Gunn does a ladder. Colt Gunn does a drop kick while Brody King was holding a ladder, and that looked like that had hurt. Juice Robinson does a cannonball out of the ring, off the ring apron onto somebody. Pac does a skyfall twisted flip off the top ring apron, which looks sick. Brody King does a dive through the middle rope, and it knocks everybody down. And Christian comes in right then and there, really. So I really appreciate these multi spots. I think Christian plays the heel very well. It's definitely very scary to see a big motherfucker like Brody King, just be like so agile like that. All the teams, and then when Christian comes down, there was a spot where like all the teams like just corner him, and they whip his ass really, and that was realistic. And that kind of created a catharsis for the audience. And there's a lot of spots like that tonight where it seemed like a heel got their comeuppance, and it created a form of catharsis, and that's what you need the right way, really. And that worked for Christian. Mama Wayne tries climbing the ladder, and this causes a distraction for Killswitch to go around choke slamming a bunch of people. And I was very happy with this because Killswitch has kind of been like the bitch of Christian Cage. He's been like a comedy wrestler, and I'm really, really happy that in this show he actually was. He actually had a really, really big part of being Christian's assistant, and he was getting a lot of big reactions from the audience, like people saying "Kill Switch Luchasaurus." Like, really, you need to get to Luchasaurus versus Christian Cage. I think by World's End, the latest. But I do think that they really need to kind of wrap this up. But they really, really shows that Luchasaurus can be a really big star in AEW. He should be a future AEW champion. So all that's telling you something, that Luchasaurus, like, people want to see him become a babyface really badly. I would say there was a really Nick Wayne does a Wayne's World, like a running bulldog, and he puts Brody King through a table. That looked really, really sick. Turning my page, the next thing that you see is there's great offense and high flying spots of Blackpool Combat Club and Pac. Great and exciting match for showing. Also AEW, and I actually like the spot they had with Mama Wayne where she was spraying people with pepper spray, and then she gets sprayed as well, really. But they also kind of kept her safe. They didn't do something like they put her in danger. Nick Wayne does a middle rope dive and hits a Canadian Destroyer on Buddy Matthews. That was like one of the spots of the night. Juice Robinson brings out a crazy tall ladder towards the end. Christian Cage does a kill switch on Pac. Christian Cage pepper sprays Wheeler Yuta and wails on him with a chair. I appreciate Christian Cage having offense. He wasn't like a chick shit heel. He really just also did a bunch of work in this match. Juice Robinson teases a table pile driver spot on Mama Wayne. Kill switch was getting awesome crowd reactions. Christian spears Buddy Matthews. This is one hell of a motherfucking ensemble. Pac wins the titles, and I appreciate this surprise wins. And this adds a dynamic if Bryan Danielson becomes the champion, which he did. And then you have Pac, who is very competitive, and he wants to have a match. Like, what would happen if Pac wants to get the AEW title as well, really? And then he's in the Blackpool Combat Club. That's an interesting dynamic. My enemy is working with my friends. Keep your enemies close, or how is my enemy going to behave, really? So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. Overall, this match was very thrilling. It was an outstanding opening. It was a great opening. It was a great contrast to the next match, which was Mariah May and Toni Storm. This was more of an action-packed match with wrestlers that do action-packed very well. And sometimes you need these matches. Like, okay, you can have some story and a lot of action, and sometimes you need the story. They featured big men and high flyers very well in this match. Wrestlers played either their heel or babyface roles very well. So this was an outstanding opening. This was like an A+ match for me. The next match is Mariah May versus Toni Storm, and I will say that this was definitely the best women's match that they ever had on AEW, and definitely very, very awesome work. I'm very proud of Mariah May and Toni Storm. This is definitely the best women's match that they've ever had. And this really showed to me that I think Toni Storm knows how to be a wrestler. She knows how to cut the comedy, and they really know how to be very character driven. I think before I felt that Toni Storm matches were not that good. I felt like she interjects too much comedy, but here I really felt like, she became a superstar and Mariah May became a superstar. Mariah May and Toni Storm exchanged knife edge chops. I think, and I was like worried in the beginning of the match. I said like it should be violent and bloody, and I thought that should happen at the beginning of the match, but they had that later on, and I'm okay with that. Mariah May hits a sunset power bomb onto the floor. Mariah May does a spinning power bomb. Mariah May does a hurricane run. Mariah May does a butterfly hold submission. Mariah May does a back suplex and running knee to get Toni Storm out of the ring. Mariah May kisses the ring announcer on the head, and this was kind of like the worst spot in that match, but everything else really worked really. And I kind of said that this is kind of what we have to think about. They have to, like, when they write down their ideas, they have to kind of be like, okay, does this idea work, or is this idea something that doesn't work? And I felt that didn't work, and that felt a little too comic relief in a match that shouldn't have comic relief. Mariah May slaps her mother in the face, and she just beats down Luther. Now that works because Mariah May is supposed to be all about the title, all about being a jerk, all about drawing attention on herself. Really, like I think she wants Toni Storm a spot. So it's almost like Toni Storm is a babyface who is a prima donna, and now Mariah May is a babyface heel who's a prima donna. Really, so that all worked. But kissing the announcer on the head was a big no-no. It was just, as I said, it was silly when you're not supposed to be silly. Toni Storm hits a pile driver on the steel steps, and I really appreciate how they're doing violence in the story. I think that then what happens is that Mariah May started bleeding, and then there's blood in this match. This really worked. Toni Storm consoles her mom, and I didn't like that, but I kind of said, okay, that works, because obviously Toni Storm is trying to be the babyface, but when she says something like, you can rest your head on my bosom and other things like that, that's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of like what the issue with Toni Storm, like she kind of has this thing about being, I know she's trying to be this over-the-top starlet from the 50s, but this is where she kind of should say, okay, this is my idea, I don't think this works, or someone needs to tell her you do not do that, or unless you want a $50,000 fine, because you are hurting your character that way, because you're saying, okay, we can't drop the comedy. Toni Storm does a 10 punch, and it blows Mariah May a lot, and Mariah May was very bloody during this match, so this was this really worked, all this extra blood. Mariah May spits on Toni, and she acts very defiant through the match. So this really worked to show that Mariah May wasn't like, she wasn't getting beaten down and scared, and then just being like, okay, I'm in over my head, I want chances. This was like Mariah May was like, I want to be the champion. I want to have like your glory. I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna be defiant. She wasn't a chicken shit, she wasn't like being the bully to being the pussy type of thing. She really was like, what, fuck you, this is what I want. And I like that. Mariah May did a drop kick. There was a great back and forth. There was a lot of near falls. It really shows the storytelling of Mariah May wanting Toni Storm's spot. It really shows the storytelling of Mariah May wanting Toni Storm's spot in devious ways, and Toni Storm avenging the betrayal of Mariah May. Really great near falls, and Mariah May keeps fighting back. I really like this because she looked very, very strong in this. Mariah May is becoming a top heel, and AEW needs believable women being heels. I really appreciate the storytelling in this. I honestly think that, as people are saying, that if Mercedes Moné wasn't such a backstage politician, this should have been the penultimate match. This should have been like, or the triple main, like I think they had a triple main event tonight, so this should have been part of the triple main event, and you should have had Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker in this spot. This is the best women's match in AEW. Toni Storm doesn't want to bloody Mariah May with the shoe, so I like this kind of like, it's kind of like the Will Ospreay thing. Like, she doesn't want to take it too far, and she needs to learn that she has to take it really far. And honestly, also shows that Toni Storm loves Mariah May still, almost like she's the Freudian mother, not wanting to hurt this for her Freudian daughter. And Mariah May wins. And she was the right winner for the match, because honestly, like I said, if you continue with Toni Storm, this really does nothing for her character. I think that Toni Storm losing and then wanting it back and being ruthless and do a blow-off match and All Out, that's what you need to do. I would love to see another match between these two. And you have like 2 weeks to All Out, so really they could have another banger of a women's match. You could do something like have them have another blow-off match, keep Mercedes Moné off the card. It was a great emotional match, great near falls, and great comeuppance for Mariah May. One of the best AEW women's matches. And to me, this was the match of the night. So this was an automatic A+ for me. Automatic A+. This match really kicked ass, and it was very legendary. The next match was Chris Jericho versus Hook. FTW rules means anything goes. I really wish that they explained these, because some people don't know this. So you got to explain it to the audience when you have stipulations. So I was saying to myself, this means. So I really appreciate the 3-on-1 against Hook. Hook clears the ring and suplexes Jericho repeatedly. Jericho does the lion saw. Jericho brings out cricket balls into the ring. Hook brings in a cricket bat. Hook uses the bat and sends cricket balls into Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho freaks out. So this is, the unnecessary comedy thing that you see in Chris Jericho matches, and he should not be doing that, because he should be a little bit more serious. Brian Keith hits Hook with a trash can lid. Big Bill almost puts Hook into barbed wire. And I was saying to myself, I wish there was more of a story in this match. What would have happened if you did something where you did a backstage segment with Hook and his dad, and then, Taz is like, okay, it's FTW, it means 3 against 1, what Jericho's going to do, he's going to have, what if you did something where you had a backstage segment where Taz is talking to Hook, and he's saying, like, it's FTW means you guys can do whatever you want, so it's going to be 3-on-1 against you, how Jericho plays, and Hook was like, what, Dad, and I want to be a man. I want to prove it to you. I want to prove it to everybody that I can take out multiple people. This title, that title is family honor and all that. And then you kind of set up a story where Hook is going through all these people. He's being like, screwed over a little bit. And then you see cuts to Taz, and Taz is like, no, my son has pride. I'm going to help my son really, because of all that cheating bullshit. And you even have, and then you did something where Shibata. And then Hook kind of accepts his father's help, really realizes that it doesn't emasculate him. He just Taz wants to make sure his son is safe, really, because obviously 3-on-1 is a lot. And then I also will say you have to be careful with 3-on-1 matches, because it buries Jericho and Big Bill, a big man and an 8-time champion, world champion. And then I also was saying too, wasn't like Hook and Shibata friends, so what was Shibata's reaction? You had to kind of fill in that plot hole. So the story that I gave you guys, that would have made this match a little bit more stronger. And I also appreciate Taz getting involved in putting Brian Keith in a submission. Hook puts Jericho in a submission, and having Taz and Hook hug each other at the end kind of worked really. But I think the son proving himself to the father, and the father protecting the son, and them kind of being cool with each other. I think that would have been a better match, really. So I think, like I said, there could have been a better story within this match, but and that would have made it execute a lot better. But overall, I really wasn't a fan of this match. I think another match I did not like on this card. This was very lackluster. FTR versus the Young Bucks versus the Acclaimed. The Young Bucks dressed as the Beatles, and I was okay with this because obviously, this would upset people because, the heels are dressing up like, something that the British crowd likes. I appreciate the crowd shots when the Acclaim came down, and like they're also chanting "Oh, scissor me, daddy." So I really think that this is great. It shows how over the Acclaimed are. And I really hated the rap that Max Caster did. He was doing a bunch of penis envy, penis jokes. And the thing about it is that when he was at Forbidden Door, and he was like tearing apart Okada, he needs to do something of that level. Like he really, he did something that was appropriate for like a Rampage. His rap should have been something appropriate for Wembley Stadium. So I'm not sure what happened, but he didn't give his best. And 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 then I would say Cash does a power slam on one of the Bucks. Dax does a German suplex combination on Bowen, Max, and FTR. I almost fell asleep during part of the match, and then later on got a little into this match. I got a great sense that I was saying like, what if they did a story of the Young Bucks abusing their power and being allowed to cheat, or saying that that it's a hardcore match for them really, and then you have FTR and Acclaim being rivals. They could have done a lot more to kind of convey that story. That would have been a better story to like convey and tell really, but they really didn't have that. I really think that they just did their spots. There's really no like storytelling or rivalry. I just think that it just didn't. It wasn't a good match for me, and I would appreciate. I appreciate a bunch of near fall attempts by the Acclaim. Like this spot where you thought the Acclaim were going to win this. The Young Bucks retain, and I was thinking to myself, they should have a table, ladder, chairs match between the Young Bucks, the Acclaimed, and FTR at All Out. Just have them have the hardcore core and crash match, and really make them and really go with that dynamic that the Young Bucks can cheat. They can have like Okada and other people, and Jack Perry and other people interfere, and make this show overcome the odds. And you have FTR being like, we want it, and they want to rival with the Acclaim. So that's a better dynamic. So I really hope that they kind of do that. And then at the match, you had Drake and Gibson come out, and I know like they're the crowd favorites because they're from like the England area, and I was like, who the fuck are these people? You do not do something like you don't do something like that. It would just be like if you had Frankie Kazarian and I don't know, like Frankie Kazarian and Sami Callihan show up. Really, most people don't know who the fuck those people are, like unless you watch TNA wrestling. So you kind of get what I'm saying. It's almost like you don't do that. Like you don't know who the fuck these two people are. Really, most people don't know who the fuck they are, and you're trying to make them like big deals. They didn't really deserve the spot, but I do appreciate them trying to be a bigger deal, and trying to like, create more tag teams within the tag team division. I really think that, how should I kind of say this, that two things had to happen. If you're going to have the Young Bucks retain, they shouldn't retain, you should have given them to somebody else, or you should have a babyface team come in and challenge the Young Bucks. You could have done Top Flight or the Infantry. That would have been better. You set up a match to All Out, and you kind of set up like the underdogs or the next generation, trying to take it from people like the Bucks, really. So that would have been a better usage. So I think this match was very lackluster. You had the Casino Gauntlet match. They need to mention the rules of this match as well, because that's something that's different with AEW, because it looks very much like a Royal Rumble match. Casino Gauntlet match means that 20 people or another number of people will enter the ring. However, the rule of Casino Gauntlet match means anybody can. The rule is you have to get a pinfall, and the way that it works is that the first pinfall that happens is actually wins the match. So imagine if you had the Undertaker come out and he was fighting a jobber, like let's say let's say he's fighting like Otis, really, and then Undertaker hits him with a choke slam. You make Otis a joke wrestler, he pins him, and then that's it, really. The 18 other people don't actually get a chance to kind of interfere. It's the luck of the draw type of thing. Really. I think that was explaining it, graphic explaining that the rules of this, it would have made the show a lot stronger. I I was very like tired within this, but I was happy Okada got a spot. And they also mentioned that if you win this, it's like the Money in the Bank. You can cash in your title shot at any time. It was good to see Nigel McGuinness and Zack Sabre Jr. to hype the British crowd. These are legitimate wrestlers, so you're not putting in joke people. I appreciate them mentioning that Zack Sabre Jr. won the GM Climax, and he could be the IWGP and AEW Duo Champion. So I appreciate this because you are actually explaining who Zack Sabre Jr. is, his accomplishments, making him a big deal. You're not just throwing random people in there. I was saying that the match was very boring, and I almost fell asleep again. Mark Briscoe really added life into this match. He has a lot of big personality, and I really think that honestly, if you have a heel AEW champion, you really need to have a match with Mark Briscoe. Like I think within the next 365 days, Mark Briscoe needs to headline a pay-per-view against a AEW heel for the AEW championship. He really, really deserves it. He adds so much life and vitality. And if AEW doesn't do that, then fuck you guys, because he really deserves it. He's almost like Trek Williams in the sense that he adds so much. He has so much fun. He has so much energy. And he really needs to, he should not turn into another Athena where he's like a champion for a couple of years in ROH. You really need to graduate him to the main roster. He needs to be fighting for the AEW championship. He can even talk about what it means to his brother and his family and do it for family honor. Like, he really, really needs to graduate to that. And if they don't do that, he becomes like Luchasaurus or other wrestlers where he already has it now, and you're going to let that fade, So fuck AEW if they don't push him. He really deserves it. But I was also saying at this point is that I thought Adam Page was going to win. So Adam Page pinning Mark Briscoe would have been what I would have done, really. But I also understand, like, with the main event, really, you wanted Bryan Danielson to win. So if you had Adam Page win this, more than likely he would cash in the opportunity to get it from Swerve. And then you wouldn't have that, moment with Bryan Danielson at the end of the night, really. So I really think that with Adam Page not winning this match, I can kind of ameliorate that. Adam Page had a look of anger being on the warpath in his body language. He and Mark Briscoe had the most amount of character and personality within this match. So I would really just say that they did a hell of a job. They both were great wrestlers within this. Adam Page was picking a fight with everybody. This works. I did not like Jeff Jarrett in this match. Like, as OTR Central talked about, that Jeff Jarrett cares about his ego. You see him kind of beating down Adam Page and hitting Adam Page with the guitar. He did a lot of just, putting a lot of shine on himself. And that's not good because Adam Page should have been a standout in this match. And I think that he was, but Jeff Jarrett took that away, really, a little bit. Ricochet debuts. And I was also mad because with Adam Page, they had fireworks. Why are you having fireworks for Adam Page? Isn't he a heel? Unless they had something like, unless Taz or somebody said, the EPs wanted to spend part of the budget on fireworks for Adam Page. They could have done that, but Adam Page should not have fireworks. When you had Ricochet come out and you had the fireworks and everything like that, that should have been the only time he did that in this match, because that would have made it stand out a lot more. It was great to see back and forth between Adam Page and Ricochet, and Adam Page and Okada and a couple other people. So you're really setting up a bunch of feuds of Adam Page, really, because you can't do Adam Page versus Swerve forever. You have to do other people. And if you have Okada versus Adam Page, or Adam Page versus Ricochet, or Adam Page versus Jeff Jarrett one more time, all this shit works. Jeff Jarrett hits Adam Page with the guitar. This hurt Adam Page. There's momentum. This all felt very energizing after Mark Briscoe got into the match. Killswitch comes in, and people thought that he was going to turn face and betray Christian Cage, but then Killswitch helps Christian Cage. And I like that because that's very unpredictable. And I was also saying that the other thing about this is that Luchasaurus gets blamed a lot when Christian Cage loses. So obviously, this was the way for them to kind of say, okay, well, Luchasaurus Killswitch, he's going to still be part of Christian Cage, and you validate that by having him help Christian Cage, So, they lose the trios titles, but all is forgiven. And then also with AEW, you can't do it all the time, but sometimes it works when you have wrestlers have multiple matches. Because in real life, there are people that go after multiple titles, really. So I was really okay with that. So it was really great. But I'm a little worried because Brian Danielson versus Christian Cage, that does not feel like a AEW main event really. Because Christian Cage, I'm not sure, but he has charisma. But I don't think that he's not like really like a superstar type of thing. Really, I think that he would have to do some really brutal shit, or he would have to kind of like um, you know um, invite like Brian Danielson's family to like the Chicago show or the South Dakota show, and really just do something crazy to them to make Brian Danielson want to kill him. If you want to do Christian Cage versus Brian Danielson, but it's also bad because you don't want Christian Cage to be on All Out as challenging Brian Danielson, because you're saying that he's kind of for the B shows or whatever, really, because you just had this their WrestleMania show, and and All Out show is not supposed to be WrestleMania. It's supposed to almost be like a filler show type of thing, really. So I just hope that like when they make the card, if they want to do Christian Cage versus Brian Danielson, you have to give me a compelling story. You have to make them really hit home, and you really have to do shit to make Christian Cage feel very believable. I think they're gonna have a great match if they do it, but I do think it's gonna be a little lackluster. So I'm not happy with Christian Cage winning. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with it. I'm not sure when they're gonna have the Christian Cage versus Brian Danielson. But I would say it's a very 50-50 match, because after you had Mark Briscoe, it got really exciting. And then also Ricochet coming in made it really exciting. It had a slow start, then it got thrilling at the end. The next match was Will Ospreay versus the next match was Will Ospreay versus MJF. I got like 30 more minutes to talk really, and then I gotta go to work. So I was bored throughout the match until Will Ospreay did a bunch of flips outside the ring, and MJF got connected with a pile driver. Imagine what would have happened if they actually didn't have that 1 hour match in Little Rock, Arkansas. And then I was also kind of saying that the show was very long, so I was getting very tired. I also had to mention to you guys that I was up from 11 p.m. Until 6 p.m. So I was up, close to 19 hours, because I worked the night shift at my job, really. So I felt very tired. I was leaning back in this chair just to make sure that I was able to not fall asleep. I was bored. Ospreay and MJF do a Spanish fly onto the floor. Ospreay does a shooting star press on MJF, while MJF is halfway leaning over on the top rope. Ospreay, being frustrated with MJF's bullying and enough is enough attitude, brought me into the match, really. So like they know how to be characters as well. Ospreay does a double ring rope jump into an Oz cutter, which looked really cool. MJF counters later on with a jumping pile driver. Ospreay is selling his neck pain very well. Ospreay reverses a double underhook into a Stormbreaker, which was cool. MJF does a Canadian Destroyer on a ring apron. Ospreay is really selling that this is all taking a toll on his body. He was great. He was great at selling this match. Well, Ospreay hits a cameraman by mistake, and MJF uses the world title as a weapon. And I also was saying that this is kind of really the story that Ospreay does have a heart. He does care about people, and he also cares about not like killing or crippling his opponent. Or MJF doesn't care about who he hurts, or what happens until he wins the title. Really, so I like that like theme and dynamic. I was saying that I didn't like. They also did a referee spot where the referee gets hurt, so I felt like this was a little overdone in this match. There was too many like knocking out the referee. Daniel Garcia comes back and costs MJF the match. And I predicted that this would happen. And I would say that you need to make Daniel Garcia versus MJF at All Out. This would be a hell of a match. Imagine if they had, imagine that was the main event. Imagine if they had like a Texas death match or something really fucked up and brutal. You could do a lot with this. Imagine Daniel Garcia on the microphone just talking shit about MJF and saying, like, I overcame this. You were just like, you're like my abusive father where you abuse people, and I just can't wait to just fuck the hell out of you type of thing, really. Fuck up the hell fuck up the hell out of you. You do all that shit. That's gonna make Dan Garcia a new star. He did right now. You can make Dan Garcia a really big mega star. And he needs to really deliver the next like 4 shows. And if you have something at All Out where he beats MJF, congratulations, bitches! You just make Daniel Garcia from Mr. Dick Dancing Daniel Garcia to actually a real serious wrestler. And then you need to keep him like that. And then he also needs to choose when he's going to do the dick dancing spots, because if he does that way too much, he's going to like throw it all out the window. So he has to understand too. Be very, very careful not to interject comedy when it doesn't work. Ospreay hits the Tiger Driver, and then he gets the pinfall. And I was saying too, like, this was a really great match. The match really crescendoed. Like, I think that through the match, I felt boring, then it got exciting, and then I cared about these characters. And I also want to say that the story of the Tiger Driver, it was a really great story, and it was a good match. I think that even though it was boring in the beginning, it was still very passable. It was like a B- to me. The next match was one of the worst matches on the card. It was Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné. As some people were saying, that it seems like Britt Baker doesn't really give a fuck. Like, she doesn't really wrestle as serious as she could. Mariah May does a backbreaker onto the top rope, like dropping like Tony Storm dropping Britt Baker on it. I didn't feel engaged most of the match. I didn't feel emotionally connected to the characters. I was saying to myself, you could have done a story of maybe Britt Baker talking about how she grinded in AEW and she was almost paralyzed, and she was in rehab, she did all this hard work to come back, and you're seeing Mercedes Moné be like this princess of AEW, and then you also kind of see like, Mercedes Moné talking about like how what the entrance is, Tony pays extra money, that's part of her contract, so she almost is like, she's wined and dined really, she's wined and dined really, and Britt Baker's like saying, I'm from the original AEW, you're just coming in and being privileged. Almost like, imagine if, it's kind of very similar to what you see in like TNA wrestling. Imagine the hardworking AJ Styles against a super privileged type of main event mafia type of wrestler. They kind of had that type of dynamic within this match of Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné. Would have sold it a lot more. There's no story that got me into this match. Mercedes Moné wins, obviously. The only thing that was good about this match is Britt Baker does the Eddie Guerrero spot, which gets Camella, if I'm saying her name right, I'm thrown out. Britt Baker does the Panama Sunrise. Mercedes Moné hits the Moneymaker and wins. I felt bored during the match. This wasn't compelling. The only like thing that got a attention out of me was the Eddie Guerrero tribute and the Panama Sunrise from Britt Baker. She's doing a homage to Eddie Guerrero, and then she's doing a homage to her husband. The next match was Darby Allin versus Jack Perry, and I was also saying too that just like that you have two wrestlers that are very compelling. You have Darby Allin kind of being like the Jeff Hardy of AEW, one of the 4 pillars. Very charismatic, very distinguished look, and a lot of big spots this year. There's talks about him being a future champion, very underdog type of wrestler. So a lot of people connect with that. And then you have Jack Perry, who, again, he has a lot of controversy because of the shit that he pulled and got an upset at CM Punk, and that led to CM Punk's emotional immaturity and all that. So you have 2 people that you care about. So honestly, I was really hooked into this match. This actually felt like a shot of coffee to me. So you had 2 compelling characters. This was a good penultimate match. I'm happy, and I was also very happy because you had blood, and in the Tony Storm Mariah May match, but this was like 7 or 8 matches ago. So that's very good pacing. Because I've seen, like, I remember like almost like every single week they were putting somebody through a table at AEW. Or a lot of times in AEW, we'll watch shows. Sometimes, almost every week, they fight in the crowd. So I was happy that they had a good space between the hardcore stuff or the bloody stuff. Because if you do that back to back, or you do it way too many times in a night, it doesn't become as special. So they were very good about having this, but not always overdoing it. Darby Allin does a bunch of chair spots. Darby Allin glues on thumbtacks onto his own face, which is crazy. While Jack Perry was on a chair, Darby Allin jumped off from the top ring rope and did a double foot stomp onto him. Darby Allin does a suicide dive, and what happens is that he misses Jack Perry, and he blasts his body into the casket while the casket was standing up. That looked like that had to hurt. I like the glass being introduced by Jack Perry, and I was saying that's a great heel move because obviously we get the real glass cry me river. Like that was good because again, that it elicits an emotion, and that's what you do really. There was a lot of fuck CM Punk chants when that happened. Jack Perry does a spot. Jack Perry gets thrown into the glass, and then he's hit by a skateboard with Darby Allin. There's more fuck CM Punk chants. Jack Perry duct takes Darby Allin's arms together. Jack Perry powerbombs Darby Allin off the ramp, on the ramp, and whips him with a belt, and then he ties the belt around his legs. So now both his arms and legs are restrained. Darby Allin. Jack Perry throws Darby Allin off the 15-foot ramp area onto a table. Jack Perry puts Darby Allin in a body bag and drags Darby Allin into the coffin. And then before the casket closes, Darby Allin tries to fight back, and then Jack Perry hits him with a running knee, ends the match. And I was really happy with this because honestly, usually in matches like this, you have you have the babyface win, and then also the other thing too is that if you did something like if you had Darby Allin win, it kind of makes you wonder what they're going to do for the main event. It kind of makes you less wonder what you do for the main event, really. Because sometimes what happens is that if in the penultimate match, the babyface wins, then in the main event match, they have the heel win. Or sometimes you do vice versa. But most of the time, you have a babyface win. In the penultimate match, you have the heel win at the end of the night, really. So I'm kind of happy that they did that. And then also, too, you can't have Jack Perry be buried. I think that there's more that you can do with him. So Jack Perry can't be buried. And also they did a spot where the Young Bucks come down to try to save. The Young Bucks come down and they try to throw gasoline on top of Darby Allin inside the coffin, and they try to cover the coffin with gasoline. And then Sting comes down and saves Darby Allin. And even though he's retired, I really appreciate that because once again, as I've said with Billy Gunn and Dustin Rhodes and Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Von Erich, you don't know much longer these guys have really. So you really need to just give them something special really. And I was very proud that AEW did that. It did not feel glory hogging or anything like that. It wasn't like TNA with the Main Event Mafia. It wasn't glory hogging, so I really appreciate it. The last match tonight was Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland. Bryan Danielson does a springboard cannonball off the rope onto Swerve. Bryan Danielson does an arm bar over the top rope. He does an arm bar submission that suspends Swerve Strickland over the top rope. Swerve does a Death Valley driver onto Bryan Danielson, onto a ring bell. Bryan Danielson's all bloody. Swerve assaults Bryan Danielson from his family. Swerve really was a heel in this match. Danielson does counters with a double stomp into a label lock. Bryan Danielson does a tiger suplex. Bryan Danielson does a tiger suplex from the top rope. Swerve hits a vertebreaker pile driver. That move was actually banned in some areas, but that was really good. Swerve really, really played the heel in this. Swerve does the house call, also known as the running knee. He does another running knee to Bryan Danielson. Swerve hits big pressure, a lot of near falls, great back and forth. Swerve really lived up to the heel. You had Adam Page try to interfere in the match, and I was very happy that this did not lead to a pinfall. Even though Swerve got distracted, they had maybe 5 or 10 minutes after this, and I'm really happy because if this led to because then what happens is you make Adam Page the babyface and Swerve the heel, since Swerve was being the heel in the main event match. And then this would feel very Vince Russo TNA wrestling where there's too much interference. So I was very, very happy that they continued on. And I think Tony Khan, he's learned from TNA wrestling that you can't have Vince Russo type of finishes. You can't always have interference leading to a result really. I think that Swerve was distracted, but he was able to fight a little bit longer, and that made him look strong. Brian Danielson hits a running knee. No, Brian Danielson hits a psycho knee, running knee, label lock, and then Swerve tries to tap out. Brian Danielson breaks his fingers, and then Swerve taps out really. Brian Danielson wins the AEW Championship. Really great match. It had me like almost like you almost feel that in your body where people like me who've been through a lot of disturbing things and sad things like you have the sensation of crying but you don't cry. You had the fireworks and then you had Brian Danielson's children come out. They did a lot of like intercutting between Brian Danielson's children and Brian Danielson without it being too pretentious. The right amount really. It was very emotional, and then they had the fireworks and everything. Like it's as I said that Tony Khan. He really knows how to make great pay-per-views, and I also really appreciate Tony Khan because he has the right amount of pay-per-views. You can't. Tony Khan would not do well in WWE because if you let's say if you worked for WWE, they would do something like say, okay, what if they had Elimination Chamber, they had another WWE show, and then the week after they had an NXT show, so 3 weeks of pay-per-views. So that's why I would say Tony Khan does have a gift for larger than life moments, and I think that's what makes him a really great promoter in that sense. He knows how to make larger than life moments. I do think the television needs a lot of work, but as I said, the big thing that Tony Khan has to learn from this entire night is that you need to have good match. That it's not matches that make the show. It's matches with story and character within those matches, and story and character building to the matches, and then the matches. Then you're perfect really. If you don't have that, you just have matches that are good. And as I said, it becomes very Dave Meltzer. It becomes very much an audience or one really. I think that a lot of things were done right tonight. I wish this created a lot of goodwill around AEW, and I wish a lot of fans understand that. Very great pay-per-view, one of the best pay-per-views I've ever seen in my entire life. Definitely, I would say it's the AEW pay-per-view of the year. I would say second place has to be the Sting retirement, but this was the best pay-per-view that they've had this year, and it's really just because you did so much with the show. You had a great spot for the Von Erichs and Matt and the Undisputed Kingdom and Dustin Rhodes and so many other people in that match. You rewarded a lot of wrestlers like the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage for the year of all the times they participated. You're making a potential star out of Daniel Garcia. You have a good match with Hook. You have a great match with Mariah May and Toni Storm. Mariah May is now a star. And then you have a great match with Swerve and Bryan Danielson. Swerve is now a legitimate like heavyweight type of wrestler. If he ever goes to WWE, it would be fuck WWE if they don't put him in up for the WWE title really. Like wherever Swerve goes, he's in that circle of people that should be a main event. That should be in the main event scene all the time really. So I really think that you did a lot really. I really think that a lot of great things happen. A lot of the positives outweigh the negatives. I would say that I think some of the weaknesses are, as I said, the kickoff show was terrible. You're advertising these big shows on a kickoff show, and that's not good. Your London show, your Forbidden Door, a London show, your Brisbane show, that should be advertised to the main roster. And then also the other thing too is that you had a couple of really bad matches. I think that the worst match on the card it had to be the triple tag team match. In my opinion, between like the Acclaimed, FTR, and Young Bucks. I think that they know a lot better. There's a lot better that they could have done really, and what makes it bad is you're looking forward to it, and then it underdelivered. Versus a match like Mercedes Moné, where you kind of know that she doesn't really connect with people that much. And you also know that the Britt Baker controversy, where she got suspended, kind of took away from the match. They could have spent more time if she wasn't suspended. So, and then also when you had like the clusterfuck matches on the kickoff show, you know that they were going to be bad anyway, really. So when you have a match that has a lot of potential and it underdelivers, that to me is like the worst match, So, but overall, really great show. I think that honestly, I think with everything and how I feel about the show, the ups and downs, even though I tend to grade high, really, I was gonna say like an A+ show, but I really think that an A minus. But I would say, it's definitely a well deserved A minus of a show. Really, I'm very proud to review it. I'm very proud that I had some Super Saiyan energy where I went from being really really tired and working the night shift at my job and being up for this. And I also bought a good chair, so I'm leaning back and I'm not falling asleep during the show. I really enjoyed this, and I actually told myself, you know what? Even though I live with my brother and he's a pain in the ass, really, I felt very happy that I was able to watch the show for like 5 to 6 hours on a Sunday. And when they have it for Australia, and when they have it for London again next year, I definitely will do it the way that I do it, which is I'll write it. I'll have my notebook and write down all the stuff that I like, and it's gonna be a great experience. I'm very very happy for the future AEW. I'm actually gonna go down to All Out. I'm gonna go down to Grand Slam. I have a goal to visit all 50 states. I'm actually gonna go to the South Dakota show, and then after that, I only have Wyoming to go to. And then for Wrestle Dream, I'm spending a couple of days in Denver, a couple of days in Wyoming, Cheyenne. And then I would visit all 50 states. I'm flying all the way to Wrestle Dream, and I'm gonna be there because I live in the Connecticut area. I'm going to the for Full Gear show, and then I'm also gonna go to the Orlando show, as well. Really, that's gonna be a great Christmas gift. So, I have a great year. I'm happy that I think for over a year and a half, I've really been to all the AEW US shows. So they really do pay reviews that well. And as I said, Tony Khan is like a mix of Dixie Carter and Triple H. In his heart of hearts, he gives a fuck about professional wrestling. He doesn't always have the best execution, but what I see is that there's deep down in his heart of hearts, he really loves this industry, and he really needs to, and he really is going to be successful. He learns from failure, and tonight, I really felt that he learned from a lot of failures. And I think the big thing that you saw tonight was there was no talk about CM Punk. There was no like blasting or bashes. Tony Khan was focused on All In. He was focused on advertising the Brisbane show. He was focused on advertising the Forbidden Door show. He gave 100% a fuck about AEW. He didn't give a fuck about CM Punk. It's old news. It's old news. It's old shit. Fuck Jack Perry for his unprofessionalism last year, and fuck CM Punk for his unprofessional last year, and fuck Tony Khan for his lack of action last year and just being a little too complacent. But this year, but today, I salute Tony Khan, and I also salute Jack Perry and a couple other people for making this about All In and not making it about like CM Punk. And it doesn't mean that CM Punk's a bad person. It just means, if you let somebody live rent free in your head and that's infecting your creativity and quality, it's your own fucking fault. The same way I've kind of let the fucking 40-hour film project live in my head when I'm actually trying to work on. I'm actually getting back to my filmmaking. I got my stabilizer, and I got a few other equipment. So I'm actually trying to give filmmaking another chance, really, and do travel videos and make money off of it because working at a hospital my entire life until I can't do it no more is not a life that I want, really. So another lesson of tonight is Tony Khan focusing on making a great show and not being focused on CM Punk, really. So I really appreciate what they did, and I'm very very proud of Tony Khan. Definitely way better than last year, and I look forward to future shows with AEW. It is a company with a heart.